It's Rog, and we are ready to USMNT it up again in the face. It's Nations League time, aka business time, baby. The first test in official competition for that great American Mauricio Pochettino. 2 games to continue to familiarise himself with our nation's finest men. Set of Nations League quarterfinals against Jamaica. Quite tasty Jamaica. The first game Thursday night in the National Stadium in Kingston, Jamaica. The Office. Then we do the Forbidden Dance again Monday night against the same opponent in St. Louis. This Men in Blazers Vamos US Men's National Team Special is brought to you by our good friends at Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today, play $5 and get $50 instantly when you use code MIB. And to break down this moment and tell you all you need to know to prepare yourself for all there is to come in this international window, it's a joy to welcome back a man who has played against Jamaica at this very stadium, former US men's national team striker turned elite broadcaster on ESPN, where his Football America's honestly must watch, must listen, baby, as is his star turn on Vamos, on the Men in Blazers Media Network. It is always a joy to welcome my friend, formerly of Los Angeles, but now Connecticut's finest. It's Mr. Hercules Gomez.
Raj, you and I are close now, man. We're down the road from each other. I never thought it'd be the case.
When I take a deep breath, I can smell your aftershave, your cologne wafting down whatever highway it is that connects us.
I should use aftershave, but I'm a baby. You know that scene in Home Alone where he puts the aftershave on? That's been me for like the last 20 years. I can't do it. So I'm not an aftershave type of guy. You would have a thick beard. You use aftershave.
Yeah, I'm Drac on the wall all day, every day, baby. Like Cristiano Ronaldo, we're very similar human beings. Herc, it is Nations League time, baby. You can tell the streets of the United States are just popping off with excitement. Between 1 and 10, how excited are you? Be honest, how much do you love completely made up Concacaf tournaments?
5.5. I'm actually kind of nervous, if I'm being honest. I'm nervous for the U.S. men's national team. I'm nervous for fans. I'm kind of nervous for Pochettino. I know people want to take a dump on the Concacaf Nations League, but this is still a trophy up for grabs. And if I remember correctly, only the U.S. men's national team has ever won it. So you pretty much own this tournament. Was that 3 times now, Raj?
Yep, so, back to back.
There you go. So I'm a little nervous if I'm being honest.
You know, let's dive into the slightly surreal emotions, because this window can mean everything and it can mean nothing. So stay with me here, viewers. I'm not going to lie. To me, on one level, Nations League doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot in the big scheme of things. Look, we all like winning. But it's like the Nations League in Europe. It is a made-up tournament designed essentially to give friendly windows more, I think, of a sponsorable brand name. The US, as you've just said, has won 3 of these things, baby. And let's just be honest, the Canyon of Heroes was not troubled by a single flicker of ticker tape parade on any occasion. So win, and it's no biggie. But for Mauricio Pochettino, losing this window to Jamaica of Steve McLaren, after losing 2-0 to Mexico in his second game last month, I will just say, there is a sense that just the optics, ultimately it's all about the optics, would not be great.
Yeah, and if you're Mauricio Pochettino, I mean, you were brought to take this team to the next level, right? Would losing to Jamaica away from home be that next level? I would argue it's more the same. Given this national team, these young players and their inability to play away from home, you've not changed anything. And quite frankly, I think fans right now a bit disenchanted with, I would say, the roster. I don't know why. They probably expected something more, like he was going to unearth some player that we've never heard of. But they see it as a bit of more of the same. So you really have to change that, perception. You've got to change that mentality that, hey, this is a different program. You're going to see something distinctive when you play against Jamaica. When you see the U.S. men's national team against Jamaica, it's not going to be reactive football. It's not going to be, let's just hope that we can get a result and not lose, which has been the norm for the U.S. men's national team outside of outside of the U.S. So Mauricio Pochettino, even though it's early days, he's got something to play for here.
God, I love the way you framed it. What we expected, that there was a package deal that he would have unearthed, like prime Eric Dyer, prime Dele Alli, prime Harry Kane, some US eligibility, and they'd all come as a package.
Exactly. I don't know. Like, people are thinking like Pochettino is going to all of a sudden uncover some player we've never heard of, and he's going to be like the second coming of Harry Kane, to solve the nine issue. Dele Alli, look, he's already said Dele Alli's Malik Tillman. He found his Dele Alli. It's Malik Tillman. Those are his words exactly. So now what we expect is, okay, you can't just say Malik Tillman's this great player with all this potential. You got to unlock that potential, right?
I mean, this is it, essentially. You're saying we want and need Poch to raise our national team game. We didn't expect to have to see Poch actually flailing in the mud of Concacaf for him to actually just be brought down to our level. But those are the stakes almost for this next window.
I mean, that's what it is. U.S. men's national team fans have been spoiled for the last 5 years. They've been accustomed to seeing this team win in Concacaf. You may be accustomed to seeing them lose outside of the U.S., but you see them win, pick up trophies, and you always see them beat the Mexican national team. Now, all of a sudden, after 5 years, you lose to the worst version of the Mexican national team. Like, Greg Berhalter could have done that, but never did that. Now, I'm not trying to, get too much on Mauricio Pochettino because I think you have to give him time. But this is the perception of U.S. men's national team fans today. Like, there seems to be this idea that you have to beat Jamaica in Jamaica. You not only have to beat them, you got to steamroll them. And quite frankly, Steve McLaren's come in and he's done some, savvy recruiting, and Jamaica's still Jamaica. They're a bit of an enigma. I don't know what to expect from them, but can they hurt you? Absolutely.
It is going to be some challenge, I believe. And Jamaica, let's just say, are one of a number of CONCACAF teams who are evolving with really a sharp recruitment, which, by the way, I welcome. That the better CONCACAF can be, the bigger the challenge, the better the US can be. Steel, sharp and steel. But this is Pochettino's first meaningful away game. And away games in CONCACAF are, we've said this many times, they're like footballing versions of trips to Star Wars cantinas. It is crazy. It's a different world. You have played on the road in Jamaica for the US. You played in the office in Kingston. Tell us what's in store for Pochettino and our boys.
It's strange because when we played there, it was a doubleheader. It was right before the September 11th game in Columbus against Jamaica. I think 5 days before, you played against Jamaica in Jamaica. So it was like a chess match, if you will. But they didn't have a lot of support. It was like a half-empty stadium. I recall the track field, I believe, being around it. The grass is, up to your knees. The opponent makes it difficult. There's a purple haze in the air, if you catch my drift. It's a strange...
Was that Kyle Beckerman, or was that the...
Shout out to Colorado's finest. I think he's still coaching in Colorado. That's a good man right there. Underrated player.
Perpetually at high altitude.
That's right.
And the truth is, road games in CONCACAF are their own kind of crazy, their own kind of ecosystem. I remember Jurgen Klinsmann, who'd won everything, and I thought he'd seen everything in the football world. He talked wide-eyed about the unique madness and chaos that is CONCACAF. And this United States team, they do not play a lot of games on the road, and it's been their worst form on the road. We see the worst manifestation of this US team on the road, Herc.
Yeah, I don't think there was a game in Greg Berhalter's tenure on the road where you saw they were completely in control. Even the game where they, scored 4 goals on Honduras, it was that halftime adjustment, and it was Ricardo Pepe saving Greg Berhalter's job that did it for them. Other than that, think about the away games where you thought they were in control. Maybe the Mexico 0-0 game. That's the most in control they've ever been. But again, that's Greg Berhalter's great ability of playing against Mexico and deciphering them, for who they were and playing against their strengths. Other than that, they've struggled against every single national team in CONCACAF away from home.
So that is the big picture. I want to dive into the US starting lineup, almost element by element. But first, the promo, because I am so excited for this pair of Pochettino games. And I do want to say, Thursday night against Jamaica, after that final whistle, Brendan Hunt of Ted Lasso fame and I will go live with you on YouTube on a Do It Live. Come join me and Brendan by subscribing to our YouTube, turning your notifications on. But let's go. Let's talk about ourselves or our boys, the United States of America. Individually, should be said, we are playing in a time of peak US men's national team player. 9 Americans just competed in the UEFA Champions League on the same day for the first time. Our players are gaining minutes, many of them on big teams, many of them making big contributions, almost on the regs. Here's the anathema of this US team, though. It's not yet kicked in collectively in US jerseys, but individually, this is a solid squad.
It is. The US men's national team has never had Concacaf's best player in their pool. They've never had that. A field player. We've had many great goalkeepers, all of them bald. But you've never had a field player that could presume to be Concacaf's best player at the moment. You have that right now, Christian Pulisic. He is playing out of his mind. You think AC Milan, you're not thinking Rafa Leao anymore. You're thinking Christian Pulisic's team. That's how good he's been since he got to Milan. But you need to see it with the U.S. men's national team. These individual moments, for as good as Weston McKennie is, and as much as he keeps shutting up his doubters or his haters abroad in Italy. I mean, I've spoken to many pundits, Italian pundits, and they're always like, well, he's not going to end up playing. And he ends up playing, and he has a career year in assist, and he's still doing that. Timothy Weah comes in, and all of a sudden Timothy Weah is playing as a 9, a withdrawal striker. He's playing on the wings. He's scoring goals. He's equaled his career best, and we just started the season. You've got players that are playing at very good levels. Ricardo Pepe, Malik Tillman continues to be a quality player in Europe. But you need to see it with the U.S. men's national team. And I think you've never had a moment where the individual moment at the club level comes together and meets the collective, and you have that prime moment in the U.S. men's national team. So fans are clamoring for that, and I think you can see that level is there, but they've not quite put it together.
So big picture, this US squad, yes, injuries, Gio Reyna, Josh Sargent, Hadji Wright, we'll talk about them in a minute. Of course, Serginho Dest out with injury. It's a young squad. We take pride in that. It also comes with inbuilt limitations. 11 players, 23 and under. First look for Poch at 2 players who have been stalwarts in recent times, Tim Weah and Chris Richards, who both returned from injury. Caden Cowell, Brandon Vasquez, along with Alex Sandejas, bring some Liga MX flavour. Zach Steffen, young Diego Cochin in goal. Welcome back to the squad. But the rest, pretty much what we've become accustomed to from the past. Poch, as you've already said, he's not exactly shaking things up, making statements about change anyway in terms of player selection.
I don't think he can. What about this roster is a massive surprise to us? We could argue about, a 4th or 5th goalkeeper in the depth chart here. Can argue if a field player deserved to be on the roster, but you're not talking about a player that's going to be in the starting 11. I mean, what you have is what you have. Ronald Koeman famously said of his Barcelona, es lo que hay. This is what we have. The same thing with the U.S. men's national team. And I think Mauricio Pochettino doesn't take a genius. He's probably seen the videos. He's probably spoken to the scouting department. He's got, people in that organization that are very familiar with this player pool. And this is really it. I mean, sure, it'd be nice to unearth a dual nat, somebody that you're not accustomed to seeing, and have them surprise you in the way a Malik Tillman has surprised you, in the way a Folarin Balogun come in and be an important player in this program and maybe lift your spirits about what the future can hold. But that shouldn't be what you're banking on. I mean, that shouldn't be what you criticize Pochettino for. This is what it is. Now, what can you do with this program? The biggest knock on Greg Berhalter wasn't you can't unearth more players. It's you're not getting the best out of this current player pool. So, here you go, Mauricio Pochettino. This is what you were brought in for.
Yeah, God, I mean, surely Tim Ream has like some 28, 29-year-old child that we've not yet given a debut to or something. But let's dig in, starting as we so often do together, Herc, at striker. Well, that normal gridlock and confusion that we've come to debate window after window. Won't somebody step up and declare themselves to be the goal machine our nation needs? Ever since Jesus Ferreira stopped bullying Caribbean teams and Caribbean teams only, this is actually an odd window because there are so many cruel injuries in this position. Josh Sargent, again, out with a groin injury. I feel for him. He's had the worst luck in and around US camps. Gets worse though. Flo Balogun out with a shoulder injury suffered just after his club scoring touch had returned. And last weekend, Hadji Wright scored, but was then stretchered off with ankle knack for Coventry. So our attacking options are listed as Cade Cowell, of Chivas, Ricardo Pepe of PSV Eindhoven, Pulisic as an attacker, Brandon Vasquez back again from Monterrey, Tim Weah and Alex Zendejas. But more than ever, Herc, as I see it, this camp's about one man and one man only. Ricardo Pepe, who's finally earned some starts at PSV and delivered, I think, 3 starts, 5 goals. I don't know. Is that good? This is his moment, isn't it, Herc?
Yeah, it's Ricardo Pepe's moment, and it's Ricardo Pepe's job to lose right now. He's in pole position. Listen, Folarin Balogun, Josh Sargent, Haji Wright, they're not in camp. Okay, so they're not in the conversation. Who's in the conversation? Ricardo Pepe, Brandon Vasquez, and I will argue about Timothy Weah as a 9 later if you'd like, but Ricardo Pepe is the one guy right now that has the equity. He's the one guy right now that, even with Mauricio Pochettino unfamiliar with this player pool, has done something for Mauricio Pochettino, comes in against Panama, scores a goal while he's concussed. You know, like the guy's got a natural ability to find the ball and put it in the back of the net. He may be the most disrespected player in all of CONCACAF, because when you look at it, there is nobody who puts the ball in the back of the net at a more frequent rate with fewer opportunities than Ricardo Pepe. And I wish he would play more at PSV, but what are you going to tell, Peter Bosch? Bench the league MVP, the reigning league MVP, and Luc de Jong, who's your team captain. It's not going to happen, so I feel for Ricardo Pepe. But when Ricardo Pepe, to his credit, gets on the field, he scores goals. And this isn't just for his club at PSV, who usually run the table in the Eredivisie. This is also for the U.S. men's national team. I mean, last year he scored, 5 goals off the bench? He scored right now for Pochettino. He seems to be the only 9 you can bank on trust. Brandon Vasquez isn't a starter right now for Rayados Monterrey. He's got serious fork in the road career questions coming into this camp. Does he stay at Rayados where he's not got an opportunity for multiple coaches? What's his confidence going to be like? He offers a skill set that's unlike anybody in this pool. I mean, the size, the strength, the heading ability. He's a very vital and useful weapon, but what's his psyche coming into this camp? So it's Ricardo Pepe and only Ricardo Pepe, unless, and this is only for the second match because Timothy Weah is suspended for the first match, Mauricio Pochettino wants to use Timothy Weah, and it's not even as a false 9 because we've seen him in some version as a 9 throughout his career. If he wants to use him as a 9 because he thinks his ability and movement up top can unlock defenders, Juventus has taken advantage of that movement, and he scored some goals this year. So there's that possibility as well.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Weah, incidentally, suspended for the first of these 2 games. Copa America still haunts us, baby. But Pepe, 6 goals on the season. You mentioned club icon Luc de Jong. He's had, I think, 696 minutes to get his 6 goals. Ricardo's taken them from just 420 Eredivisie minutes. He is clinical. And I found it very moving listening to Ricardo Pepe talk about this past year, his experience of it. Remember, a year in which he won the league title. But he said, to be honest, it's been a long year. I've been patient on the bench, waiting to play 10, 15 minutes every weekend. It's a little frustrating, but at the same time, I know I have to be patient. I am ready to be the man. Can he be our man, Herc? I'm asking, tactically, what has to happen for Ricardo Pepe to truly thrive in this US setup?
Think about how long Ricardo Pepe's been around scoring goals.
And he's 21. He's 20. It's shocking. I mean, I often forget. I thought it was a typo when I read it. He's still only 21.
21. And he's had ups and downs in his career that most players who have played a decade, would say, yeah, this happened in my career. He's been the man at an organization like in Major League Soccer, like FC Dallas. He goes as the highest transfer in the history of Augsburg and flops. And that would crush the psyche of any player. Goes
miserably, painfully. It was agonizing to watch him. Confidence bled out.
And he goes to the Eredivisie at Groningen, and he absolutely tears it apart. Gets on the radar of PSV, signs for PSV, ends up doing very well in the brief time he plays, regardless of the competition. Champions League goals versus Sevilla, important moments, U.S. men's national team. And by the way, he missed a World Cup that he shouldn't have missed. He was robbed of a World Cup that he should have been at. So all these things happen to a guy who's not even 20 yet. And you're thinking this should be it. There's no way this kid rebounds from these things. And he does. And every time he's on the field, he proves it. So He wants to be the man because he knows he can be the man. Unfortunately for forwards, not only do you have a short memory, but everybody around you has a short memory once you stop scoring goals. So he's got to keep putting the ball in the back of the net with the U.S. men's national team because fans won't let it go because they still want to see Fowler and Balogun. They still want to see Haji Wright. They still want to see Josh Sargent. For whatever reason, Ricardo Pepe keeps getting looked past. So if you're Ricardo Pepe, the only thing you have to defend yourself are goals. I think he can score.
What do we need to do, Herc, though, to get the best out of this player? What suits Ricardo Pepe? What service does he cry out for?
Well, you need to get the ball in the box. And this doesn't mean, crosses from deep. This doesn't mean the ball goes out wide and comes in. No, Ricardo Pepe's a very savvy forward in the way he links up with players. I think he could be very serviceable for a Christian Pulisic or whoever's playing in that double 10 role or out wide if there's a different formation. But you need people with him to combine because he's savvy in the box and he will find those spaces and he will be dangerous for other players. He will drag defenders into space and create things. But you need to have volume. You can't be just sitting back and expect a transition and expect Ricardo Pepe to be that dangerous player in transition. He's quick enough, yes, but he's not a Fowler and Balogun. He's not a Haji Wright. He's not a guy that you want in open space like a Timothy Weah. He's a guy that you want making movements in the box and you want to find him. So, I think it's a double-edged sword because with Ricardo Pepe, when you're in the box, you gain a lot, but not exactly a guy you want in these transition moments because he's not that player.
To the midfield, no Tyler Adams, back finally for Bournemouth. Made his first start at the weekend in 224 days. I think Argenta's played just 100 minutes since July 1st. Poch decided, quote, Tyler's an important player for the US. I consider him personally a very important player for the future of this team. But the most important thing now is to see the progression. We need to look after him if we want to have him in the best condition for 2026. It's important to build that relationship, meaning a relationship with his club, which is a stark contrast to how Tyler's experienced the past couple of years, where Greg Berhalter would bring in Tyler when he was barely back from injury, sending him back to his club unable to play and pissing off Bournemouth more than I can say.
To me, this isn't a Mauricio Pochettino thing. This is a Matt Crocker, Oguchi and Weyu, U.S. soccer type of thing because they understand who Tyler Adams is. Tyler Adams comes into this program, comes into this camp, and he's going to find a way to convince Mauricio Pochettino that he's ready to go. He's going to play 90 minutes. I could run through that wall. And that's who Tyler Adams is, right? That's what he did with Greg Berhalter. I don't put all of it on Greg Berhalter. Like Tyler Adams, he's the one who would literally...
He'd come on our show, Herc. He'd come on the show. I'd be like, you are injured. You're reporting to the Copa. How are you going to play it? And he'd just be looking to the camera and he'd be like, I'm going to play 90 and then 90 and then 90. This is a direct quote and then 90. By the way, all the way to the final, he assumed he was going to be playing, which I love too. Bless him.
Bless his soul, because I want a player who's willing to play. And no player plays 100% any time in his career. They're always dealing with something. That's the way footballers are. But you have to protect a footballer from himself. And I think this is what U.S. soccer and maybe Pochettino to an extent are doing here. So that's good because Tyler Adams is going to find a way to play 90 if he's around. So we want to see the best version of Tyler Adams because we know how good he is. At his height, he's the best defensive midfielder you have in CONCACAF. But you can't prove that if you're not on the field. And he's not been able to stay on the field, get on the field, and be a player that's impactful long enough to convince us.
One thing about Tyler that's actually hard to tell just from the football, speaking to the other players in the squad, they talk always about how important he is to the team culture. He's a player that holds so many of the players' personalities in check, creates structure for everyone. Without him, there can be a real lack of almost zen at times. He's a critical figure on and off the field.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, I think about leaders on this team right now, and you have Christian Pulisic who's going to lead by example. And then everybody's going to go, well, Tim Ream's there. The guy's like, how old? He's got to be a leader. And I think Tim Ream is a very good leader. I think that's why he's there. But I don't think Tim Ream is necessarily to pull the guy on the side and get into his face and hold him accountable that way, pointing the finger. I do think Tyler Adams is that guy. And it's good when you have players like that in these locker room dynamics because it keeps players on their toes. It makes them feel like, hey, I can't just rest on my laurels. There's going to be accountability around here. One from Tim Ream because he's the wise, savvy old guy. Christian Pulisic because I want to be held to that standard. I want to emulate what this guy's doing. And then Tyler Adams because I don't want this guy barking at me. I don't want to be the reason that we're not doing something and be told about it in front of everybody.
Yeah, I mean, the leadership on that field is one of the ongoing storylines that I'm kind of fascinated to watch game to game. I'm also interested, talking about the midfield, to see Malik Tillman, you talked about him earlier, sees another opportunity to look good in a United States jersey. I think he had a goal and an assist against Girona in the Champions League in the last round, became the first American player with 3 goal contributions in a Champions League match. For PSV Eindhoven, he's a delight to watch. He's truly potent. What do we need to have him thrive with us? Because in this US setup, we do not get the best out of that man.
No, I really don't think the US setup right now is conducive for a 10, and I think that's his biggest issue. You play in the Eredivisie, you put for a team like PSV, you're going to have the lion's share of the ball. You're going to be able to dictate play. He's going to be able to roam freely. He's going to be able to drop back into the center backs, and pick the ball off and make these just beautiful slalom runs, with and without the ball, dissecting the center of the field. That's not going to happen in Jamaica. That's not going to happen in Panama. These spaces aren't going to be afforded to him, and there's going to be different type of refereeing and very physical, encounters with opponents. And this isn't an excuse for Malik Tillman, but the reality is Malik Tillman's not shown anywhere near his best football with the U.S. men's national team.
Come on, Malik, baby.
Again, another player who's, 21 years old? So, we're maybe asking a lot of these players because we see him on the world stage doing well. I mean, Champions League game against Girona, and he was, if you watch this game, Raj, he was arrogant on the ball. I'm talking about just like swag, just dripping every play, heel flicks, outside the boot, just like taking liberties that I would never think an American player would be taking in a Champions League game. And he looked very comfortable. He doesn't look comfortable with the U.S. men's national team. The only thing that brings me a little bit of, tranquility with this is Mauricio Pochettino's words about, how similar he is to Dele Alli. And if there's anybody...
Prime Dele Alli.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. Let's hope he's talking about Prime Dele Alli and not today's version. But if there's anybody who was instrumental in his career, it was Mauricio Pochettino. So he's already has a knack for working with young talent and exploiting that talent, on the field. So I'm hoping he can do the same thing, unlock that potential for Malik Tillman.
PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. I play because it is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And just watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends. Become part of the PrizePicks community today. And become part of the PrizePicks community today. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. I want to touch on the defensive side of things for a moment. It is great to have Chris Richards back. What a human being, what a player, what a personality. I think 7 defenders include only 2 natural fullbacks. It's really a centre-back sausage party. We need to talk goalkeepers, Herc. Zach Steffen, back again from Greg Berhalter's mysterious naughty step. 18-year-old Diego Cochin, the Floridian playing for Barcelona B team. Patrick Schulte of Columbus. And of course, our friend Matt Turner, now of Crystal Palace, but a gent who has started just 1 club game in 8 long months. He's our starter at the 2022 World Cup. He's starter at this year's Copa America. Also the goalkeeper in Poch's first 2 games last month. But during his first camp as US coach, Mauricio Pochettino said he wants his players seeing regular minutes. Where are you, Herc, on our #1? And is it Lionel Messi's dad, Mr. Brad Guzan?
You know what's crazy? There are a lot of people who think Brad Guzan deserves another shout here with the U.S. men's national team. And I love me some Polar Bear. I love me some Guzano. Brad Guzan is one of the all-time good guys in this game. He was a teammate of mine with the U.S. men's national team. I used to play against him when he played with Chivas USA. That's how far this guy goes back.
That's amazing.
But he's 40 years old, right?
It's young for a goalkeeper.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But there are players in this goalkeeping pool that show you some ceiling, that show you some sparks, that give you a hope that they can be something. And there are others right now that you just wish would go somewhere different for their own sake, would have a change of scenery. And that's Matt Turner, right? Matt Turner desperately needs to find playing time, because if Mauricio Pochettino is true to his words and it really means something for him to have players playing, well, then Matt Turner's got to leave. He already left Nottingham Forest to Crystal Palace. One bad situation to maybe a slightly better situation, but certainly not playing is not ideal for him. And if he doesn't find something soon, Patrick Schulte could find himself in a position where he's playing, because you look at the way the U.S. men's national team played against Mexico, and they were always trying to build out of the back. And if you have a player who's accustomed to that, which Patrick Schulte is with Columbus, because Wilfred Nancy will sometimes ridiculously force things out of the back, he's got some comfort in that, he's going to play. A Zach Steffen, though, it's not just about playing. And I'd argue Zach Steffen had a very good Leagues Cup, but that's about as good as it got for Zach Steffen in Major League Soccer. So there are players who are going to have an upper hand because they are able to build out of the back. That's not Matt Turner's game. Diego coaching's interesting. I mean, I don't recall a time in our, in this program's history where they were so desperate to get a fourth goalkeeper, from abroad. Usually a fourth goalkeeper we brought in, whatever local market you were in and whatever Major League goalkeeper was there. They are desperate to get Diego coaching here, which tells me that Mauricio Pochettino sees something there. Obviously, it's Barcelona's La Masia. There's brand name there, but you're bringing this guy in again. He sees something here. So this really interests me. But to answer your question, which in a very long-winded way I tried, it's still open as that 9 position.
Can I just tell you, on a team low on leadership and experience, 40-year-old Bradley Guzan, who is still so bloody hungry. I mean, fighting his way back from a ruptured Achilles. What a hero. Shutting down Lionel Messi. Taking the worst shithousery Luis Suarez can conjure and ending up being the one to laugh last in Suarez's face. I mean, I looked at him spring out the back of the net where he'd been pushed. Tell me our nation doesn't need that kind of fighting spirit. Huh?
That's what this nation was always about. That's what it always had. You know what would have been better in that moment? If Brad Guzan, he's got a prosthetic front tooth. If he took that front tooth out and smiled the way he did at Luis Suarez with one tooth, that would have been epic Brad Guzan. It would have been world renowned. But I agree with you. And listen, Inter Miami can sit here and cry about how unfair it is. By the way, unfair is being gifted a Club World Cup, spot without actually winning a trophy, and a first division trophy to show for it. Unfair is giving this team 3 opportunities to win 2 games and losing 2 of them, one of them at home. So Brad Guzan deserves all the plaudits here. This man is an icon in U.S. soccer, and those who know.
God, prosthetic tooth and all. Still number 1 in my heart. Brad Guzan. Okay, there is another team to discuss, and they are, as we talked about briefly up top, quite decent. Jamaica, 61st in the world, whatever that means, FIFA rankings, but they are on the rise. Almost, by the way, despite the chaos of their federation, which remains just as chaotic and as quite terribly run as ever. But they have recruited so wisely. Remember, as Herc said, they nearly eliminated the United States from the last Nations League in the semi-finals. Before that, late had you right brace. Now they're coached by Steve McLaren, ex-England manager. I just pray every time I see him in training that pasty Englishman slaps on the SPF 100. His squad has lots of experience. Mason Holgate, Ethan Pinnock, Damari Gray, and of course, Leon Bailey, who Steve McLaren has persuaded to end a year-long self-imposed hiatus from the team. What kind of challenge do you foresee? Because this is a team that can be direct, can be fast on the break, and even without Mikel Antonio, who I think is out for the first game with suspension, will be back for the second one. This team can smash you in the mouth.
Very well said. And the ceiling here is so high. Maybe overly high on Jamaica for quite some time, and they've let me down time after time. There was one Gold Cup, the last one, I believe, where I picked Jamaica to win because there was no U.S. Men's National Team A, no Canada A, and it was a struggling Mexico. And they ended up losing to Mexico in Arlington, Texas. A very disappointing game. But they have the ceiling to make you pay. Listen, they're very, very difficult defensively. They've got a slew of English players, whether it be Premier League or Championship. They're very physical. They're very direct. They're very good on set pieces. Go back to the last time they played in Jamaica. It was Damian Lowe that dunked on, Walker Zimmerman. Mikel Antonio may be suspended, but just look at this team. He's 33, 34 years old and can still physically run you and batter you into the ground. Very good forward. Damari Gray is very creative. Bobby Cordova-Reed's another player. Leon Bailey has never come close to his club form on the Jamaican national team. I'm talking Leverkusen and I'm talking Aston Villa as of late. But if he does, not only are the U.S. men's national team in trouble, but every other team in CONCACAF are in trouble. And you got a dependable goalkeeper in Andre Blake. This is a scary team. It's also an enigma. I would never bet the house on Jamaica. I would never say, here is some good money. Jamaica's going to win because they can let you down. But I'll tell you what, I would also never bet against Jamaica. You just don't know what version of Jamaica you're going to get. They're not a Ferrari. They're not a Lamborghini. But they could be a Caribbean McLaren.
God bless you. Landing that point. A Steve McLaren. By the way, Leon Bailey, I fear, a gentleman, who's had his conflict with his own federation. We had my friend Jaime Halmagrason, the Icelandic dentist, the last Jamaican manager, come on this show, and he talked quite openly about just how complicated the Jamaican federation is, almost self-sabotaging at times. Leon Bailey's had his conflict with that federation, but to come back to now his nation are watching on home turf, there's no better way to re-announce himself, and that is what I fear. But tell us, Herc, what do you foresee? 2 games, let's get those predictions going. Spoiler alert me. What are we about to watch?
I'm not very optimistic for the first game. I think if the U.S. men's national team can bargain out a draw, it's a good result. And I don't think they're going to be very attacking. I think if they try to open themselves up, it's going to be a long night for them. I'm going to go with a stalemate. I'm going to go with a very frustrating 0-0 draw, which is going to be good business for the U.S. men's national team. But if we go into this thinking you're going to steamroll, dog walk Jamaica, it's going to be a very, very long night in Kingston.
God, I actually think we are going to concede early in Jamaica. I think we'll come back to draw 1-1. But in St. Louis, Herc, finish off this series. I think we're going to roll there. I can see 3-0, feel-good factor at 11. Poch eating all the toasted ravs.
Ooh, this would be a game that you have to win. And I don't know if you necessarily have to dominate, because let's give Jamaica some credit here. They can be very difficult, but you've got to be convincing. And I think the U.S. men's national team will be convincing. I'll give it it'll be a 2-1, and they'll cap it off with a late transition 3-1 final scoreline.
Nations League back to back to back to back. That's a lot of backs, baby. We got one quick last one to touch on. I am fascinated by Pochettino's comments this week about dual nationals, players who've been really our special sauce in recent tournaments. Some of our biggest stars, Yunus Musa, Anthony Robinson, that great Scouse American Flo Balogun, Ricardo Pepe, were recruited to play for the United States when they had options to play elsewhere. There's more out there. Italian, American, Nigerian, Canadian, Burnley winger Luca Koleosho, who's rumoured to be off to Bayern Munich, American, Japanese, Stuttgart defender Henry Chase, who is meticulous and remarkable. Poch said this. He said, if we really believe that a player can help us and can improve us, of course we're going to be 100% involved in that situation. I don't want to give names, but we're working on other players to try to see if they're committed with us. But Pochettino also sounded a note of warning, suggested he preferred passionate US players to join rather than gents just looking for, let's say, commercial opportunity. When he added, we don't need to convince players. A player needs to want to play for the national team. I'm Argentinian. You're not. You're American now, Poch. He said, I wanted to play for Argentina. It's not because of a contract. It's not because of the possibility to play in Europe. No, I was desperate to defend my badge, my flag. We need to be careful. There's no need to convince a player. One player cannot be more important than the team or 300 million people. Wow, first of all. It was like hearing an Argentinian Bruce Arena for a moment when I heard this. But what did you make of it? Because when you speak to agents, you do hear about players negotiating, wanting commercial commitments, even starting time commitments. Were you surprised to hear Poch speak like this? Or is he, behind the scenes, do you think he's really just speaking to an audience of one, a particular footballer?
I was very confused by the comments, and I'm going to be honest. And now, bear with me here, Raj, but you are the U.S. men's national team. You are not Argentina. You don't have the luxury of the player pool that Argentina has around the world. They export more than probably any other country. And yes, Argentinians, when they play for the Argentine national team, they are desperate to be there. They treat every game like you're playing against Brazil, like it's a World Cup final. But if that's the case for an Argentine national like Mauricio Pochettino, why, when you play against your version of Brazil, Mexico, you allow your best player to get some rest, to leave? Why is it that you're saying in a quarterfinal of a continental tournament, Tyler Adams, don't come. I don't need you here. Remember, you were the U.S. men's national team. It was Bruce Arena who famously said about Giuseppe Rossi, we don't go chasing around 18-year-olds. That kid ended up playing for Manchester United, Villarreal, the Italian national team, and is probably the one player that could have changed your program. Talent-wise, one of the best players Americans has ever played the game. So while he is absolutely 100% right about players wanting to play for their national teams, I am all good with that. You are the U.S. men's national team. If there's one good thing that Greg Berhalter did, was convincing the likes of Anthony Robinson, who may be the best left back in Concacaf today, convincing the likes of Folarin Balogun and Yunus Musa, very good in recruitment. You cannot all of a sudden say, that's not how it works. All the good work, the groundwork that's been laid, you can't just let it go to waste.
You know, Herc, I actually do think that he's negotiating right now, and this was a public statement, not about policy per se, but it was a statement aimed at one particular player and their agent as they work out the finer details of a switch. Maybe that player's Giuseppe Rossi. God knows, we can still do with you, Giuseppe. Herc, you're a beautiful human being. I do enjoy just the prelude to an international window, talking to you, preparing for you. I leave these things, with my senses heightened. For more Herc, enjoy him on the regs, on Football Americas, on ESPN Plus, and of course on Vamos, on the Men in Blazers Media Network. I'm so excited for this pair of games to come. Again, starting this Thursday night against Jamaica, 8 o'clock, I think the kickoff is. After the final whistle, come and join me and Brendan Hunn of Ted Lasso fame. We will both go live with you on YouTube in a Do It Live. Come and break down the game with us together. Subscribe to our YouTube right now. Turn your notifications on. But to you, Herc, big love. Thank you.
Let's go.
Big love to all of you. Be in touch with all of your insights. meninblazers@gmail.com. Come and join me after the final whistle Thursday night. Go USA and courage.